here, and I'd like to thank you for coming out today and talking about one of my favorite topics, democracy. I was talking to Bob Thompson a few moments ago, and Bob knows my family and knows Bob and I have known each other for a while, not closely, but what we were talking about is, why are you interested in democracy, and why is this a passion for you? And I explained to Bob that this has been a lifelong thing for me, and it's based on, quite frankly, my love of life and my love of people. And I kind of reached the conclusion that because of those two things, we need to reconsider and really take a look at and study the way we interact in politics, because that's the fundamental grounds on which we all operate together. It's the thing that sets the precedent, and when you look at history, it's the thing that's caused most conflict. And so I appreciate that, and I appreciate Bob's reminding me of why I'm here. And I also want to say a little bit about my background, just as an introduction. I'm from Lethbridge originally, and so what has got me into this interesting subject was Western alienation. When you're from Lethbridge, you're alienated from everything, including your neighbors sometimes. But Lethbridge is at the end of the world, literally, and it was the last place on the continent that was colonized, if you will. It was the last place where the Indians roamed freely. And in my school, I had classmates that their fathers could still remember being on the open prairies in Travois. Their culture is very much alive, and the white man's arrival is not that distant in their memory, not that distant in our memory. And so Lethbridge was the last place, it was the last bastion, it was the last place on the horizon. I'm glad to see my friend Al Boris from Lethbridge. Al and I lived, and his father John, who I held in great esteem. He was a politician, and I think set the path for many of us. Alan is also from Lethbridge, and he and I have traveled many miles together looking at politics and what have you. So from that Lethbridge perspective, you understand what alienation was. And when I started looking at alienation and the subject of it, I found that it wasn't just Western alienation. There's actually many forms of alienation. And so that's what propelled me into this study. So as Tori said, I did all my stuff in business. I started and ran a publicly traded real estate investment trust, Royal Host Real Estate Investment Trust. Bob's company did some work for that over the years. It was 2,700 employees. It was about a $500 million enterprise. We had operations in Canada, Mexico, and the United States. And I learned through that process what it is to deal with people. Hotel business is a very service-oriented people. And as much as I grew up in the industry, I tell people that I was actually cleaning glasses in the bar when I was 7 years old in Lethbridge. And then later on I graduated to being a bouncer when I was 12. So I know what the business is all about. Actually, I'll tell you a quick story. And Alan, you might remember these days back in Lethbridge. I was 12 years old. I was working as a bouncer in the bar. And this is when the liquor age was 21. And so I was kicking this guy out of the bar. And so he said to me, no, you got to save my seat, because it was really busy this night. You got to save my seat in the bar, and I'll be right back. I'm going to go home, get my ID, and I'll be right back. I said, no, you know what? I know you. You're the same age as my oldest brother, and I know you. You're not 21 yet. You got to get out of here. So he argues again. I said, no, you got to get out of here. So I'm kicking him out at 12 years old. And finally a policeman comes up. He says, guys, what's going on here? He says, well, I work here, and I'm kicking this guy out because I know he's not 21. That makes sense. So the guy argues again. He says, no, I'm 21, honest. I'm just going to go home, get my ID, and I'll be right back. I said, no, it's going to be fake ID. I know you're not 21. You got to get out of here. So finally, this guy looks at me and realizes I'm 12 years old. And he says, well, what about you? You're not 21. I look at the cop and go, that's different. I work here. And the cop says, yeah, buddy, let's go, and he kicks him out. So that's the essence of Lethbridge. It's a great little town, and it was a great way to grow up. So having said all that, what I want to do is I want to talk about things that you probably already know, things that you clearly already feel, and I might enlighten you about a couple of different things in the process that I went through in studying this subject of politics, democracy, and the way it's working.